All right, thank you everyone for joining. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. So we're just gonna make sure we give everyone enough time to get in here and get ready to watch. So we'll get started in just a minute. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So hello to everyone who's watching, and thank you for joining us for this Education Transformation 2020 presentation, straight from the students, a student panel discussion on the transition to online learning. So my name is Shriver Hasbrook, and I'm on the training and support team here at Hawks. Our speakers today are Dr. Hallare and Dr. Moosavizadeh. Kiara, Nicholas, Stephen, and Essence, and they're all from Norfolk State University. So Dr. Moosavizadeh is a professor of mathematics at Norfolk State, and Dr. Hallare is an assistant professor of mathematics at Norfolk State as well. And then the other presenters, Kiara, Nicholas, Stephen, and Essence, are all students at Norfolk State. So a little bit about Norfolk State. It is a mid-sized, historically Black university that is located in Southeast Virginia. So we're all so excited for these panelists today and for everyone who's joining us. And we're really excited to hear their experience that they've had so far with online learning and hear this unique discussion that we're gonna have today. So we do have a pretty large audience, and we're gonna do our best to get as many questions as possible in at the end. So please, if you have any questions, enter them in the Q&A box, and you'll be able to access that at the bottom of your screen. So as we go towards the end, the panelists will be able to respond to them. Now, Dr. Hallare and Dr. Moosavizadeh have also prepared some questions for their own to get the conversation started. But on that note, I'm going to hand it over to our panel, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Shriver. Again, my name is Maila. I'm Dr. Maila Hallare from Norfolk State University, and welcome everyone to our student panel discussion. This is where we will ask our students on their experience about the transition to online learning because of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown that happened in spring 2020. So this is a short description about this session. Here we have our 4 students who took some mathematics courses in spring 2020, and they will share with us their experiences and feedback on the transition to online learning. We have prepared some questions for them, and let me tell you that our students are going to answer them in a very authentic way. They have not seen the questions before, and we are kind of putting them on the spot, but we just want to hear their candid and honest opinions about what happened in spring 2020. Okay, and of course, at the end of our discussion, please feel free to ask us any questions, or even you can ask our student panelists. Okay, so again, these are our student panelists, and we will ask them to introduce themselves one by one. Maybe tell them what your major is, whether you're a junior or a senior, and then maybe tell us your experience just a little bit about online learning. Let's start with Essence.
Hi everyone, my name is Essence Pearl. I am a junior, and I am an applied mathematics major. Online learning, the learning part wasn't hard. It was just trying to stay focused in a different setting other than a classroom.
Thank you, Essence. Now, Kiara.
Hi, my name's Kiara. I'll be a junior at Norfolk State University this fall. I study electrical and electronics engineering with a minor in mathematics. I took 1 math course this semester, and I agree with what Essence said. It was definitely a learning a learning adjustment, I would say. Learning online, I definitely had to use different skills that I hadn't used in a while when it came to learning online.
Great. Nicholas.
Good afternoon. I'm Nicholas Joshua. I'm a senior. My major is mathematics with a concentration in secondary education. I took 2 math classes and 2 education classes in the spring term. Because I'm a veteran, I'm used to taking online classes, so switching over to online vice in person was an easy transition for me.
May I just mention that among our student panelists, Mr. Nicholas Joshua is a non-traditional student. Finally, we have Stephen.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Pringle. I'm a senior at Norfolk State University, and I'm studying optical engineering. Online classes, I think, are great, but I do see a lot of room for improvement.
Great. Okay, so this is our plan for the day. Dr. Moosavizadeh will now describe what happened to NSU during the spring 2020 pandemic lockdown.
Well, let me first welcome our audience. I'm Dr. Moosavizadeh. When the news of lockdown was first introduced by the governor of Virginia, the faculty and the students were enjoying their spring break. The mid-March break was extended by 1 week so that the university would prepare for a change in teaching style to remote classes. The face-to-face classes changed colors and they were all painted as remote classes overnight, which meant that the faculty had exactly 1 week to learn all about the system of delivery at NSU, and that is Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Those faculty who had not had any experience with online classes participated in a crash course, in a 1 week, what I call crash technology course offered by the Office of Extended Learning. We inevitably and expectedly experienced some issues with both teaching and learning. Lack of internet access by some of our students, and also unstable internet connection, financial hardship that some of our students felt, which resulted in missing a lot of our live classes, and also evaluation tools such as tests and quizzes are to name a few. But I am certain that our panelists will touch on all of these during our session.
Okay, let's move on. So for our panel discussion, we have prepared about 7 groups of questions. So let me start with getting to know you as a student. So let me ask about your learning style. I'm sure you have seen this before, but this is a Venn diagram on the types of learning style. For example, as for me, as a mathematics graduate student, I was a very visual and auditory learner. Maybe through these questions, let's get to know our students more. Let's start with Essence. Essence, what motivates you to learn, and what is your preferred teaching style?
I would say what motivates me to learn is just I want to know more about math, just so that I can better myself in the future. My preferred teaching style, I am a visual learner, so I like when teachers write on the board. I don't like PowerPoints. I like when teachers explain it out, and most of the teachers that I've had, almost all of them do that very well.
Great. Kiara?
What motivates me to learn, I agree with a lot with what Essence said. I do like to better myself, and I also want to get more adjusted to my major and see how that can affect like the industry world. My preferred teaching style would also be auditory and visual. I'm not a fan of the PowerPoints. I do like when teachers explain and go into depth with the information they're portraying to us.
Nicholas?
Motivates me to learn math is by far my weakest subject, which is the reason why I'm a math teacher now. So that right there is my motivation to learn, because I am weak at a subject. I try to apply myself more often than none. My teaching style that I like learning is visually and audially. So, you know, either way cuts. The challenge and the things going along with that or whatnot is simple for me, because life sometimes throws you a curveball and you have to adjust to it as it comes. So,
how about you, Steven?
What motivates me to learn is the success you get after learning something and applying it. I believe that's very important. And then for my learning style, I like a little bit of everything because I feel auditory, sensory, auditory and kinesthetic and the seeing one can all reinforce each other to help you learn better.
Okay, next. What is your preferred learning environment? And do you feel that your remote learning experience helped you become a more independent learner? Essence.
My preferred learning environment is I like a classroom that doesn't have lots of people in there, but enough people where I can conversate and bounce my thoughts off of other people. I like when there's other like-minded people in the room that also are there to learn, not just to get through the class. I do feel like the remote learning made me become an independent learner. There was less of like, let me go to this teacher's office hours right now. They were still there, but it wasn't the same.
Kiara?
My preferred learning environment is definitely a classroom setting with not too many people. So I do enjoy, as I matriculate through my curriculum, I see less and less people in the classroom, so I enjoy that. I also enjoy being around different students, like Essence said, to bounce off ideas. I think when it came to remote learning, I became dependent. I know I reached out to a lot of classmates like every day, and they helped me out a lot. So I would say it helped me become more dependent rather than independent.
Nicholas.
I like the learning environment where you're not the only one in the classroom that doesn't understand the problem or anything that you're going over. So having people in the classroom that may be smarter or they don't get it as fast as you can balances out the classroom. And I think Norfolk State does a real good job of that with the teacher-student ratio they have. The remote learning was, like I said, it's easier because, I have 3 kids that had to do the same thing. So learning with them and how to apply visually and learning online or whatnot, the techniques I used was able to give to my children and also to my wife who's a teacher. So embracing the Google Meets and Blackboard Ultra or whatnot was challenging, but then it's also, like I said, fun because you get to learn something else and how to teach and learn differently.
And finally, Stephen.
Could you please repeat the prompt? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what is your preferred learning environment? And do you feel that you became a more independent learner when we transitioned to remote learning?
I do prefer a smaller classroom environment. I feel like things are more focused and more attention can be given to tougher subjects when there's less people in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And going to remote learning, I believe, turned me into a more independent learner because I did lose that interaction, that face-to-face interaction that you can have in a classroom setting.
Great. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Tell us about what happened during the lockdown. In particular, did you have problems with your computer equipment and or internet connection? And for those of you who have responsibilities at home or who work while studying, what happened? Essence?
I think the most problem was a lot of my power in my neighborhood kept going out. So I was missing class. Luckily they were recorded so I can go back, but it was a lot of like, what if I had a question? I couldn't ask it at that time. That was my biggest problem. Equipment wise, I had everything that was needed. I don't work during the school year other than tutoring. So I was good that way.
Maybe Dr. Moosavizadeh, can you take over from here?
Right, absolutely. So have we all answered, because this is a very important question, and that is the computer equipment and also the internet connection. We did have some issues with internet access for some of our students. And also I understand that the pandemic impacted a lot of lives here, and our students financially or otherwise were impacted. If we could elaborate a little more about your responsibilities at home or at work that affected the transition to remote classes. I think we heard from one, Nicholas, did you comment on this? Would you like to say anything about the internet connection?
Well, the biggest problem I had is, like I said, 3 kids at the house, and trying to do Google Meets with 2 laptops and 1 desktop computer. So we had to space that out a little bit or whatnot. And I did miss some classes, but the recorded classes, I was able to go back and review it. But you had to adjust or whatnot, at least within my household, with the kids going to class, me going to class, my wife trying to teach a class, all together in the house, and try to find a quiet spot for that. So that was the biggest issue. Once we figured out how to do that, order another laptop for the children and whatnot, it was easy. The internet where I'm in Chesapeake, I'm blessed to have, a good internet provider here. So really had no internet problems or power problems where I'm at in Chesapeake. So, and then the working for me, I'm retired Navy, so really wasn't working. So my work is school. So I'm blessed with that aspect of it. So the biggest problem was trying to make sure that we had enough computers for my family, and even for me and for my wife or whatnot, that we can all simultaneously work on whatever it is that we need to work on.
Okay. Was anyone impacted in such a way that you were forced to miss our live classes?
Oh,
so
I was.
You're among the.
I'm sorry, Doctor, I was. My son's therapy, because my son is autistic, and that was the big issue, where I had to balance his therapy with my class schedule, I think, when we look at that or whatnot. So the biggest impact was with my youngest, I think, in that response of how to balance therapy, school, and family all together at once while you're trying to learn.
Yes.
Thank you very much. If we could go to the next segment. Now, this is the segment, the next segment of our discussion deals with obviously the LMS and the online homework. Will you share your experiences and thoughts about the features of the LMS and also online homework, more specifically features of Blackboard, Collaborate, Ultra, if you like or dislike any of the features. And I'm going to make this general, and you can also comment on our online homework management. And there also, if you could discuss the features that you liked or disliked. I'm going to go in order, and I'm going to call on Essence. Why don't we begin with Essence on these questions?
I'm not going to lie. I absolutely hate Blackboard Collaborate. It's a very stressful thing when it comes to class. Like when teachers are sharing the screen, they still can't see us. Like if we're asking a question, sometimes the mics wouldn't work at all. It was just getting very stressful to a point I was just like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just going to just let it record if I don't understand it, or like if I can't hear this time, I'll just go and listen to it later on. The homework online wasn't a problem because we were already doing homework online before, and I liked how the homework corresponds with the work we're doing, and if you don't understand it, it tells you exactly where in the textbook to go. So yeah.
Great. Essence, which homework management system did you use? I know you took a number of classes. Could you comment on one of them?
I think I've used Pearson for English, my English class, and we use WebAssign, so Cengage, I believe, for all my math classes.
All right, excellent. And Kiera, will you please comment on these?
So my experience with the features of Blackboard Collaborate, I would say it varied with the teachers. Some of my teachers were more familiar with how to work and navigate the software, while others weren't. But the features I enjoyed were the pen tool. The teachers could like outline and important aspects of the information. I also liked that they had a recording tool where we could go back and revisit information. And then another tool I liked was we could share our screens and the teachers could share their screens. I couldn't figure out most of the features I didn't like, but those are the ones I liked. When it came to online homework, I would say, since I'm an engineering major, I would say my professors were kind of free range. So they would like give us assignments and I'd say we have to like print them out and then scan them up and submit it. That's how my engineering courses would work. But for the engineering labs, we had to follow along with the teacher's assistants and then write labs reports on their experiments. We also had to submit that through a document on Blackboard. When it came to my mathematics courses, I also used WebAssign. What I liked about WebAssign was that we had, for my particular course, differential equations, we had practice questions. So we could take the attempt more than once so we could like improve our grade if we didn't do too well in the first time. And yes, I'm finished.
Excellent. Nicholas?
The Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, even before the remote session started happening, I was actually doing that anyways in education for online learning and everything else like that for the future of education anyways. So it was comfortable for me and whatnot because I was already doing lesson plans and everything else like that with Blackboard. So seeing it and actually having a professor do it for stats and differential equations and other education classes, actually seeing how it works is actually very knowledgeable to me. So I got like a free class basically at how the professors at Norfolk State used it. So, but then the background of me also just says it's online. So you're used to online because that's what you did in the military a lot was online work. The homework, the WebAssign, I always did enjoy that or whatnot. If you get something wrong and they lock you out, you can email the professor and the professor will unlock it for you or go over the problem with you, what you got wrong, or other students in the class would do that. So it's always good and it's always nice to have that right there so you can bring up your grade with that or whatnot. It's not like you got it wrong and the professors just say, hey, that's it type deal. So I really have nothing wrong with any of this remote stuff. It's just, the life stuff that goes with that, I think, is the most difficult part.
Thank you, Nicholas. Stephen?
As far as Blackboard Collab Ultra, I would agree with Essence. I didn't really have too many problems outside of the system we use for questioning, raising your hand and such, because the teacher would have to switch between their screen and the Blackboard Collab Ultra menu to see if there were questions. And sometimes questions would get skipped over. As far as the homework assignments go, the homework that was usually online I didn't mind that because it was always online, but more of the paperwork and hands-on stuff, I didn't like that because you would have to write it all down, take a picture, and then email it, and you might miss a deadline or things of that nature. If you're having problems, you might not be able to send it. I would like to say I prefer more software as homework assignments instead of those write it down and send a picture assignments.
Thank you.
Great. So for this next set of questions, we can go through these questions quickly. So it's like either one or the other. F2F, as you know, means face-to-face classes. So basically, these questions are about how do you prepare before the start of each remote class? Let us do it this way. Were you reading the textbook more in F2F, in face-to-face classes or remote classes? So maybe raise your hand if you were reading the textbook more during the remote classes. No? Okay. How about the PowerPoint lecture slides? Were you reading the PowerPoint lecture slides more during the face-to-face classes or remote classes? Raise your hand if you were reading the PowerPoint lecture slides more during the remote. All of them? Yes. Okay, great. So out of a sample of 400%. Final question, were you solving more math problems? Well, in these questions, what I really mean is, you know, there are some required problems in the homework assignments, but there are more problems in a mathematics textbook. So were you solving more math problems during the remote? Yes or no? Raise your hand. That is nice to know. Okay, great. Great. Thank you so much. So let's proceed to the next questions. Dr. Moosavizadeh?
Yes,
Okay.
and now.
Put in real quick, 1 second. Sorry. I just want to let you all know, not everyone can see everyone unless they're talking. So can you let everyone know how everyone's answering when you're doing the raise by hands? Just so
Oh, yes, yes. I am so sorry. So let's go
no,
to
there's no problem.
it again. Do you want me to repeat that part? Well, I can summarize. I think I remember. I think about in our sample of 4, 50% of them are reading the textbook more during the remote classes. And then 100%, all 4 of them were reading the PowerPoint lecture slides more. And finally, regarding solving more math problems, I think half of them, 2 out of 4, are doing more non-required math problems. Okay, Dr. Moosavizadeh?
All right, the next segment on online engagement, you are again comparing face-to-face to remote classes. And we would like to know how you felt, were you more engaged in the remote class especially? And also, were you asking more questions? 1 second. Were you asking more questions in the class during the live sessions, say, and how were you contacting your professors? Were you contacting your professors more when changed this style to remote? And the last question is on applications. That is a sensitive topic. This is a topic very close at heart to myself and also Dr. Hallare. So I'm gonna leave that for last. Why don't we comment on the first 3 questions? And to save time here, I'm asking for volunteers to respond to the first 3 questions.
Okay, I'll go. I felt less engaged in discussion because everyone can't really talk at one time. I don't know how to explain it. So like when we were in class, it was more of, okay, you talk to the people beside you about this problem. You guys come up with the answer. The next group comes up with the answer, and you guys at the end, we will talk about it all together. It's really, you can't really do that in an online setting with backward collaborate unless you do like breakout rooms, which takes more time. And I don't know if all professors knows how to do that. The questions, was I asking more questions? Yes. I think at one point my teachers probably was annoyed with me. I would probably asking more questions than I would if we were in person. I email a lot of professors, a lot more than usual. I guess I was their best friend at one point because I was just emailing them. They might as well give me their phone number at one point.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes. For the first question, I was definitely more engaged face-to-face. With the remote, it might as well have been a recording, to be honest, because just kind of sitting there listening and trying to keep up. More questions about the lessons, I would say definitely, because not being able to, as I said before with the questions, if the teacher doesn't see the question, then you can't stop in the middle and clear it out, so it just leads to more confusion down the road as we go through a math problem per se. For the third, were you contacting your professors more often? I definitely was, and I realized it was the other way around where my professors were contacting the students more often as well, because we were receiving constant notifications and updates on this isn't working, or class time has been changed to this, or make sure you do this. So I'd say it was a lot more to keep up with remotely.
The last question, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. And now about the applications. As you know, Dr. Hallare and I are very much involved in a NSF National Science Foundation grant by the name of Summit P, in which we feel that it is time to change the teaching style in the math courses. We believe that the courses should be more application oriented. And that is we are now piloting that in differential equations and also calculus. So my question is concerning the presentation of the real world applications. Now, would it be more successful if the presentation that is in a face-to-face as opposed to a remote setting? Essence, I'm coming to you since you are familiar with that, the move to make more classes application oriented.
I will say it's face-to-face just because I like face-to-face better. It's easier to connect and to understand more. And I also feel like it's easier on the teacher because you can see me not understanding my face, your facial body language as well. So because application is all about understanding of the material. And if you can't tell if they don't understand the material from remote, because half of the time our cameras are off, we're not showing our face, then I feel like face-to-face is better.
Thank you very much. Kiara.
When I think about learning real life applications as it pertains to mathematics, I think about my mathematic projects. So in the past, I've done projects where we had to create like a YouTube video and talk about math techniques. I've also done a project where we had to use MATLAB and report different graphs. So when it comes to learning about real life applications, I think it can work successfully remotely.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. Online tests. Okay, how are your tests completed online? So maybe in general, can we just quickly go through your answers one by one? Just a quick description of how you were able to do your final exams, for example. Essence.
So I will give an example for like in my chemistry class, he literally sat and read each question to us, and we had to all have our cameras on, and he watched us, and he read every single question, all 100 questions to us, and we answered it that way. But in other classes that we had, they gave us a test, we took the test and we scanned it and put it onto Blackboard, or yes, we're talking about remote tests as well. And we also had web-assigned tests where it was timed and it was kind of like a lockdown as well.
Okay. For Kiara, Nicolas, and Steven, do you have other answers for that question? How were your tests completed online? Or if not, we can proceed to the next questions. Again, it's an F2F versus remote. Kiara, you want to say something?
Yes, so I would say it was easier for my engineering classes online because I felt more comfortable asking questions through the chat box as opposed to like in real life where I'd have to raise my hand, kind of make a scene, and the professor would come over and see. And it was also a bit intimidating, like when other students would finish first, because, you know, in college they can just leave after the test. So I really enjoyed that part when it came to remote classes. As for my math courses, I would also say it was a bit easier online as well, or remote.
Okay, so Kiara was answering our first question. Let me read the first question. The first question says, were the tests harder or easier? So were the tests harder or easier in remote? Essence.
They were easier.
Nicolas?
They were.
Nicolas, were the tests harder or easier in remote?
I think the tests were more easier and remote because you have the web assign, at least for mine, for the most part, it was just the web assign one. So you can practice off of that right there. By when you're face to face, you know, the professor could change up the questions or whatever else based on the class, what the weakness and the strength of that class is.
Steven?
I would say they were easier or about the same,
Okay.
Nothing really
Did you
changed.
get, yeah, I'm sorry. Did you get higher grades in the remote learning Essence?
Yes.
Kiara?
Yes, for my math courses. No for the engineering courses.
Nicholas?
Yes, for my math courses, and it stayed the same for my education courses.
And Stephen?
Yes, for my math courses, the same for my engineering courses.
Okay, last question. Did you feel you had to work harder to get your desired grade? And I hope your desired grade is an A. Essence.
I would say just one of the classes I had to work harder for. The rest of the classes, I was doing the same. I did the same thing as before.
Kiara?
I had to, for the math courses, I felt like I was a little babied, so I didn't have to work that much harder for the math courses. But for the engineering courses, I definitely had to work harder to get a desired grade.
Nicholas?
I felt like with the remote, you had to work harder because you don't have access to the math lab. You don't have access to the face-to-face tutoring and face-to-face with the professor. So you have to work harder to get your grade or whatnot, because the only thing you got is the book and remote and maybe some of your classmates to help you out with it. So you have to work harder with the remote than you would, I think, face-to-face.
And Stephen?
I would agree with Nicholas. That lack of face-to-face and just being able to go see your teacher and discuss it in person, I believe will make it harder for remote.
Okay, so
If I may interject for 1 second, a question came and I was reading it on my screen. Some people wanted to know if your tests were proctored. So if you could comment on, say, the math classes, your final exam or any of the tests, were they proctored tests? Did you have any tests where basically they were take-home tests and you submitted them at a later date? And how were they proctored?
Well, the math class I was at there, Doctor, wasn't proctored, but I do know a professor that gave us a test and we had to have somebody in the house sign it as like an honor code. So when I was taking one of my math tests, I had my daughter watching me take a math test and making sure there's no papers around me while I was taking the math test. And then she had to sign that, my father did not, cheat or anything else like that or whatever else. And, I thought that was interesting, because, you got the lockdown browsers and everything else like that. I thought that was interesting that professor did it that way. It was funny, but, I thought it was a good idea type deal. So.
I think one of you mentioned that because I did that in my classes where immediately after the conclusion of the test, they had to scan the test, take a picture or scan it and email it to me right away. Did anyone do that?
Yes, I did. I've done that, and it was actually 3 of my classes we had to scan the test and send it in. But for chemistry, he read every test to us, and we answered the question as he watched all of us on the screen, and we scanned it in. We had to scan it in a certain amount of time, and if you didn't scan it in that time, then you automatically got a 0.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And we are nearing the end, and we have our final questions here, very logical questions to ask. If the pandemic lockdown, and we're talking about a possible second wave, were to happen in the middle of a semester, next semester, what would you do differently this time? And also, what advice do you have for students who will be taking or who may take classes remotely for the first time, more specifically about math classes? And also what advices will you have or do you have for professors to help them with improving the student learning in their online courses, specifically, again, math classes? If you're getting the idea that we are somehow somewhat partial to the math classes, you're absolutely correct. It's not your imagination. We're professors of mathematics, and we are very much interested in your opinion about the math courses, about the remote classes, if you will, and student learning. So please, why don't I begin with, again, Essence, and then Kiara, Nicholas, and Stephen, if you could comment on one or more of these questions, please.
My advice to a student, if this happens, which it is happening to us again, my advice would, don't procrastinate. Don't get lazy. Actually pay attention to the live sessions, ask questions. I know it feels weird, but just do it. My advice to a teacher is learn all aspects of the Blackboard Collaborate. Learn how to do the breakout rooms. Try different ways to incorporate different things into the learning that you may think that will help the students. Also, just check on them. Just email them like, hey, do you guys have any questions? Just make it seem like that you're still there, even though it's kind of remote.
What about, well, I guess you answered that question for the math classes, for those who are taking it for the very first time, and these are the incoming freshmen. I think you answered that by not waiting and responding. Thank you, Essence.
Yes, and I will also say find a tutor. Just, even though it's remote, they're still here. Just find a tutor, find a way to get a tutor.
Thank you, Essence. Kiara?
If I were in the pandemic lockdown again, and what would I do differently? I would say I would work harder. So I would refer to different references when it came to studying. I would make sure I really hound in on the said subject, like whether it's through YouTube videos or Googling or reaching out to other classmates. I would say I would work harder when it came to it, just to make sure I really understood the material. Advice I would give to students who are taking remote classes, math classes for the first time, I would say really get acclimated, make sure that the professor knows you. So reach out to the professor, engage in class, and also engage outside the classroom, especially if you have any questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to your professor, and make sure they know that you're working as hard as you can to, understand the material. Advice I would give to professors, I agree 100% with Essence. Really make sure you understand the system you're using, the software you're using, get acclimated to that. For me, my math course, I would say my differential equations teacher was very acclimated to Blackboard. I think she used all the required techniques she had to make sure we knew the information. She gave us references to YouTube videos. She encouraged, oh, did I break off? Okay, she also encouraged us to reach out to our classmates, and she also encouraged us to engage in the classroom. So that's the advice I would give to other math professors.
Thank you, Kiara. Nicholas?
What I do differently is I'm actually doing it now. Starting up, my math a little bit earlier. One of my professors for my math class already sent out some information for homework and everything else like that we need to start on. And trying to balance out my family and the children, and them getting ready to go to school and everything else like that towards the end of the month. The advice I'll give to the students taking math remotely, the same advice the professor gave me when I first went to, I took my first Cal 1 task or class at Norfolk State. If you do not do my homework, you do not pay attention to class, you will not pass my class. And that's the mindset I went in with mathematics. You can, I see a lot of the comments, you could cheat on a test, you could check it, you could do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you don't do the homework, you'll get through calculus. You might even get through calculus 2. But eventually, those applications that you should know are going to pay the price later on in the engineering class, a computer science class, or a math class later on. So eventually, you're going to have to pay for it. So why not just go ahead and do the homework and put in the work? And if you put in the work, the professor will know if you put it in that work, because if you don't understand it, he or she will be able to help you out with that. So humble yourself enough, really, truly. If you don't know it, ask. The advice I would give to the professors, I thought they did great, with what happened. And, 1 week to prepare, you can't ask for a filet mignon, you know what I'm saying? And they're just thrown to the wolves type deal. So, The only thing I would say is that over the summer, I hope that they started looking at this, that maybe it's going to be a hybrid or it's going to be a blended class coming into the next term or whatnot. But I thought they did a phenomenal job of transitioning from remote or from face-to-face to online, given the circumstances that they went through.
Thank you, Nicholas. Stephen?
For things I would do differently, I would definitely like to reach out to my peers more. I did reach out to the professors a lot, but the peers also hold a lot of knowledge that could have helped me through these classes. Advice for students taking remote for the first time, I would say make sure you have a study space, because we are at home. It is easy to get comfortable and distracted. So just find a space where you can focus and dial in when class is in session. And for the last one, my advice for the professors, I would just say try to, as Kira said earlier, incorporate more projects and project-based grades. So she mentioned MATLAB. I know MATLAB is something that I can take out of college and really apply to wherever job I go to. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to do more of those things.
Thank you very much, everyone. Maila?
Yes, we are done with our prepared set of questions, but I believe we have many questions from Q&A. Shriver, would you like to help us?
Absolutely. So we had a lot of questions come in, so thank you to everyone. We will try to get through as many as we can, but we had a lot of questions come in, and we also had a very lively chat, so I appreciate everyone chatting in. So I'm just going to start at the top and try to get through as many as we can here. Most of these were directed towards the students, so y'all can all feel free to hop in and answer if you feel like you have a good answer for it. So first one that came in from Dana, what type of learning do you prefer for online classes? Synchronized or asynchronized class?
I've had both asynchronous and synchronized. I kind of feel like with asynchronous is better because honestly, when it came to watching the live lesson, I really wasn't paying attention, so I had to go back and watch it anyway. So if it was pre-recorded, I would still have to go back and watch it. So I would feel like asynchronous is better.
So, all right. Well, on that note, oh, did you have something you were saying, Nicholas? I saw you come off mute.
I like both, and if you don't, especially when you're talking about high level math class, differential equations I put on the same plane as linear algebra. So, if you don't get it, you don't understand it. The professor recorded it, and you can always go back and look it over, type deal, at your pace and at your time, because everybody knows, at least for me, it's harder to learn online than face-to-face. So having that ability to go backwards to look over and review something is, I think, a blessing in its sense. That's the reason why I like kind of both type deal. You get the real world, real-time stuff, and then you can go back there and review later on.
So I had a couple questions here I'll combine so I can try to get through as many as we can. So if you're meeting classes or your synchronous classes where your teacher's providing you the lessons recorded, and then along with that, do you prefer for everyone having the pre-recorded lectures or being able to see the lectures live?
I prefer the pre-recorded just because when you do it live, you have a certain time limit. And then if you encounter technical difficulties, it takes away from that class time that we have to learn. So if you pre-record it and then we come to maybe a set time to ask questions, I think that'd be a lot more efficient.
Answer. All right. So for those live classes, I think Essence had mentioned these before. Did any of your instructors use breakout rooms for the Blackboard Collaborate?
I don't even know what a breakout room is. So no, none of my instructors use that.
All right.
Yes.
So,
Yes, some of my professors did use breakout rooms.
and what was your experience with those? What was it like?
My experience was I liked them. When we broke out into the rooms to just talk about the topic, and then we had a certain time limit to come back to the regular room. It worked very well when he wanted us to really just break down the issue and then come back. It worked very well to me.
Awesome. All right, so let's get the next question here. So for the synchronous class sessions, how many students in the class seemed optimal for you all to for your participation? So what seemed like a good number of students participating to still be able to, for you to be able to participate? Nobody has an answer.
Oh, I didn't get the question.
Sorry.
How many students were needed in the class for us to participate is what you're going after?
Yeah, so sorry. So for how many students in a synchronous class session seemed optimal for your participation? So what seemed like a good number of students to have in those classes for you all?
Oh, I don't know, because, you know, the math level that we're at, the classes are about 10, 15 deep, if that's about right. So, you know, it's always been that way, at least at Norfolk State. Even Calculus 1, the highest class that I ever had was like 30. And by the time the drop date happened, you lose about half the class. So 15 was right around that point, and the professor was able to manage that, I believe, for the most part, and answer questions. And even afterwards, if he wasn't able to answer all the questions, come back later via office hours or virtual hours and answer those questions for you.
When we got to online classes, I felt like the smaller the class, the easier it was. So I feel like my best online class was my class with 4 people in there. That was the best online class I had. It was, well, one, that teacher was already using technology, so it was very easy for him to transfer over, but that was the easiest class, technology wise, so that we could participate.
All right, so let's see. All right, so here's a good one from Vernita. What advice would the students give to instructors to make the online environment more engaging? Looking for solutions.
I would say don't do the cookie cutter. Please, for the love of God, do not do PowerPoint and thinking that, and I'm 42 saying this, do not do PowerPoint and PowerPoint your students to death. You know, if I at 42 get bored of that, imagine an 18 or a 19-year-old doing that. So, you know, we don't even want our kids in elementary or secondary education to even do that. So please don't think that going through a PowerPoint is going to, you know, be all, solve all type deal or whatnot. You know, got enough of that with the military. I don't need that in college now. So, you know, the death by PowerPoint is what we used to call it. So if that's all you're going to do is just teach off a PowerPoint, then I don't need you. And I could just read a PowerPoint myself type deal. So, you know, but for the most part, the professors made it interactive, did online problems and everything else like that, based off the quizzes or based off the test of what we needed to know type deal. So, and that was the majority of my classes, education and my mathematics classes.
I wanted to piggyback off of Nicholas. I agree with what he said completely. I also had a teacher where we had the PowerPoints, but the PowerPoints were there for us to read by ourselves. And then when you read the PowerPoint before you come to class so that you have some background knowledge, and then when you get to class, she taught the lesson that went with that PowerPoint. So it helped you. So like you knew it, you've seen this before, and now she's over here writing the stuff down, making sure that you understand what was in the PowerPoint, but she's also going deeper into detail.
All right, so let's run through questions here. So one about the office hours. So John had said, in the spring, I had lots of idle time just sitting in a Zoom room for office hours, mostly without students. Do you all think that asking a student to send an email if they want office hours and then only going back into Zoom at that point to meet would be okay? Or do you think it works better to have them just have an open time for you to hop in?
I agree with the email. I wouldn't tell you to waste your time just sitting there for open time. I would say have that time open, but they should still make an appointment if it's remote.
I had a teacher who actually did the open time where they just sat there and waited for kids to come in. So I didn't see nothing wrong with it from a student's perspective, but I agree when it comes to like a professor, they might have other things to do. I agree with Essence, like send the appointment and make sure you're available during that time.
I like it both. And, you know, I think the professors have to do it for accountability purposes. So the student can never say, you know, Dr. H or Dr. Moosavizadeh was never there type deal, but I have my office hours and everything else like that, my virtual hours, because you don't know what's going on with that student. That student may be working and the only time they can hook up is doing that office hours. But then at Norfolk State, if you shoot the professors an email, they will most likely always respond to you and change their office hours just to conform to you type deal. And that's what I've gotten from the math department a lot of times and whatnot, them conforming to the students a lot of times.
All right, so this question from Eric. Do you do any group work or collaboration in the online classes right now? If so, what did you do and what did you like?
In one of my math classes, we did do something similar to group work where we went into Blackboard Collab and we had a problem we had to do. And then you had to sort of comment on someone else's problem. So if someone needed help, you could go point out maybe a mistake they made or an easier way to do the problem or something like that. So that would be the closest thing to group work. And I think that did help out a lot.
I agree with Stephen. I was in that same class where we had to, she would give a discussion board question and everybody in the class had to comment on the question. It was usually a math problem. And if everyone got it right, you got a point to your test. But you can also help somebody if they got it wrong. So, and they can fix their answer. So like you guys checked on each other throughout the week.
Awesome. All right, so the question, so this is kind of referencing back when you were talking about communications from your professors making the class experience better. So besides more communication from professors making it better, what other things did your professors do that helped with connecting to you?
I had some professors even give me their cell phone number. and in this day and age, most people don't like giving their number up, their personal number up for anything in the world or whatnot. And, you know, rightfully so. So, you know, once we went remotely, because the class sizes were small, and you built that rapport with the professors or within the math department or whatever department or engineering, you build that rapport with your professors, especially if you had them numerous times. They will always reach out, I think, with that right there. So I've even had some professors give me their personal number that if I have a problem, shoot a text and they'll respond back to me when they can type deal. So, you know, thankful for that a lot of times with that. So that helped me out a lot.
All right. Well, we are running up on our time here. So I do have one last question, which is more of a comment that I wanted to read that I thought was nice for all of you. It was, I bet none of your professors minded your emails last spring. Trust me, we were all lonely too. So on that note, thank you all so much. Just wanted to say, so thank you, Dr. Hallare, Dr. Moosavizadeh, Kira, Nicholas, Stephen, Essence, and thank you for everyone in the audience for attending. If you do have any questions that weren't answered, and I know I wasn't able to get to all of them, I apologize. We had so many, which is awesome, so thank you for that. Please just direct them to marketing@hawkslearning.com, and we'll get those answered for you. We'll also be emailing out a link for you all to view this webinar on demand. So if you're watching this afterwards, thank you for watching it again. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. And if anyone wants to say any farewells, you can do it now.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you and stay safe.
And welcome to the fall semester.
There you go.
I wanna thank our audience and also our panelists, Hawks Learning, Shriver, you and Kayla. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and also Dr. Maila Hallare for her hard work. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your weekend. Be well.